Hello and welcome to the Copper Tubing and Fittings PowerPoint for HVAC 101. This first week you're going to be doing this PowerPoint along with associated assignments and a small quiz. And then next week we're going to do like an applications kind of exercise for this, just to get used to ordering pipe and such. So anyway, let's get started. Copper is a mineral and an element essential to our everyday lives. It is a major industrial metal because of its high malleability, thermal and electrical conductivity, and resistance to corrosion. They were extirred after iron and aluminum in terms of quantity consumed in the USA. Copper is easily alloyed with other metals. Brasses and bronzes are probably the most well-known families of copper-based alloys. Copper tubing, which is also referred to pipe by some people, for the plumbing, heating, and air conditioning industries is available in a wide range of diameters and wall thicknesses. Hard drawn, which is non-bendable, comes in lengths, and soft drawn, which is bendable, comes in rolls. Copper tube for air conditioning and refrigeration, which is referred to as ACR, is measured by outside diameter. Copper tubing for plumbing and heating applications is measured by inside diameter. Hard-drawn copper tubing is marked to indicate its wall thickness and usage with the following letter designations: K, L, M, and ACR. Type K has the thickest wall section of the three types of pipe and is commonly used in underground burial with a suitable corrosion protection as required by code. It has green-colored printing. Type L has a thinner wall pipe section and is used in residential and commercial water supply and pressure applications. It has blue color printing. Type M has an even thinner wall pipe section and is sometimes used in residential and commercial water supplies, but mainly it is used in heating applications. It has red colored printing. ACR is type L tubing that has been cleaned and manufactured without oils and is charged with nitrogen with the ends of the tube sealed to keep the pipe clean. It also has blue colored printing, but ACR is included with it. Type L and Type K comes in hard-drawn lengths and rolls of soft tubing. Type M only comes in hard-drawn lengths because of its wall thickness. When ordering copper tubing, you need to tell the supply house what type you want and the length you want. Hard-drawn pipe comes in 10 and 20-foot lengths. Soft copper comes in rolls from between 20 and 100 feet. As an example, if you want to order 5 20-foot lengths of 5/8 ACR and half-inch Type M copper, you need to tell the person at the supply house how many lengths of pipe, the size, and then the type. So to order it, you would tell the person at the supply house, I need 5 20-foot lengths of 5/8 ACR and 5 20-foot lengths of half-inch Type M copper pipe. Hard-drawn copper tubing is usually joined by soldering or brazing with fittings. Tube in a soft temper can be joined by the same techniques. It is also possible to expand the end of one tube so that it can be joined to another by soldering or brazing without a fitting, a procedure that can be efficient and economical in many installations, and this is known as swaging. Soldered connections with fittings are used in plumbing for domestic water lines, in heating for supply and return lines in a forced hot water system. Braze connections are used when greater connection strength is required or when service temperatures are as high as 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Brazing is preferred and often required for connections in the air conditioning and refrigeration field. The basic difference between soldering and brazing is the temperature necessary to melt the filler metal. The temperature is defined to be 842 degrees by the American Welding Society, but often it was rounded off to 840. If the filler metal melts below 840, the process being performed is soldering. Above that temperature, the process is brazing. The melting point of copper is 1,984 degrees Fahrenheit. As such, the filler metals for soldering and brazing copper and fittings must have melting temperatures below this temperature. Soldered joints depend on capillary action, drawing free-flowing molten solder into the gap between the fitting and the tube. Flux applied to the pipe before soldering acts as a wetting agent. and when properly applied permits uniform spreading of the molten solder over the surfaces to be joined. What do we mean by capillary action? To put it in very simple terms, it is the ability of a liquid to rise into a narrow gap or passage against the force of gravity. The primary element used in solder filler metals is tin, because tin has an affinity for copper and wants to adhere to copper tube and fittings. However, the use of pure tin would make a very weak joint. An industry term for a connection, as with any pure metal, would be very difficult to work with. Therefore, other elements are added to alloy with the tin to provide greater strength and make the filler metal easier to use. 95.5 solder wire, which is a lead-free alloy of 95% tin and 5% antimony. It has a melting point between 450 and 464 degrees, and it is a very common solder used in our field. Braze joints are generally used to achieve higher joint strength. Just to make a point of clarity, joint is a term used also in the industry to describe a connection. To accomplish this, filler metals stronger than those composed primarily of tin must be used. However, this increased strength generally comes from filler metals made of material with melting temperatures that melt at a much higher temperature. The brazing temperatures for most of the brazing alloys used to join copper tubing is between 1150 and 1550 degrees Fahrenheit. Silver is a very common element found in brazing rod used for the ACR industry. One very important point: we can never use any kind of solder containing lead for domestic water lines or potable water lines. Only lead-free solder can be used in domestic water lines. Lead is very harmful to human beings and should never be used in domestic water lines. No matter if you are soldering or brazing, you want to do it properly. This picture shows a good and a bad solder joint. Pause the video and take a moment just to study them and see the difference. This is a picture of a soldered joint or connection that has way too much solder been applied to. This is a brazed joint that has been done correctly. One note on brazing for the ACR industry. Whenever we braze in piping that is used in refrigeration or air conditioning, we must use a nitrogen sweep to prevent scaling on the inside of the pipe. Nitrogen is an inert gas, so what it does is it keeps oxygen out of the pipe so that scale will not form. Scale in the pipes of the refrigeration or air conditioning system will be very detrimental to the operation and longevity of that system. Other methods of joining copper pipe is with flares for soft copper and unions for both hard and soft copper. This is a picture of a flare being made with soft copper. A flare is a 45-degree angle formed on the end of the tubing, which forms a gasket when used with a flare nut. This is a union for copper pipe or tubing. It gives us the ability to take the pipe apart without cutting it or unsoldering it, so it's very good for service issues. If we ever need to work on something and we want to have to take it out of the system, it'd be a lot easier to do with having a union installed. A dielectric union is used to join copper tubing to steel pipe. This union is necessary to prevent galvanic corrosion. Galvanic corrosion occurs when dissimilar metals are connected together, and what it'll result is in corrosion of the piping and possibly leaks. As you can see, the union has an insulating gasket to separate the two metals. When joining hard and soft drawn copper tubing, we will mostly use copper fittings. The copper fitting is pre-made and has a socket on it that will actually accept the size of the pipe that we want to use perfectly. The only difference pretty much between ACR fittings and plumbing and heating fittings is really just the 90-degree fitting. The 90 also referred to as an elbow. In ACR we use long sweep elbows. In plumbing we use short sweep elbows. This is due to the fact that we have very little tolerance for any kind of pressure drop in refrigeration. So definitely we want to use long sweep elbows in refrigeration and air conditioning. There are many different types of adapters, elbows, T's and couplings used to join copper tubing. This sheet is included in the learning module as a separate download so you can view it better or print it out if you'd like. On the picture you will see different letters under the fittings. C, F, T, G, M, and F. The letter C stands for a fitting end that can be soldered or brazed, and the copper tubing will fit onto the fitting, or into the fitting, excuse me. FTG is the designation for street fitting ends, which means the end of the fitting is the same size as the pipe it's being used with and will fit into a fitting. M is a designation for threaded male end, which screws into a female thread socket. F is the designation for a female threaded socket. All fittings are measured by the size of copper pipe you want the fitting to fit on. So if you were ordering fittings for ACR, you would need to specify the fitting for ACR pipe. Remember, ACR pipe is measured by outside diameter, while plumbing and heating pipe is measured by inside diameter. When ordering T's, you must order them in a certain way to ensure you are getting what you want. T's are generally measured from the run to the branch, or also referred to as the bowl. The run is the left to right or length of the T. The bowl or branch is the top part of the T. So to order this T, you would say, I need a copper reducing T that is 3/4 by 3/4 by half. T's where the run and the bowl or branch are not uniform are referred to as reducing T's. When you have a reducing T's with different sizes, the way you would order it is first say the largest run, followed by the smallest run, followed by the bowl or branch size. So that this reducing T would be called a 1 inch by 3/4 by ½ inch reducing T. If you were ordering that T, you would also have to say that it was copper. In ordering to order a T that is uniform in size, so that all the fittings are exactly the same size, and let's say they were all 3/4 inch, all you would have to say is, I want to order a 3/4 inch copper T. Thank you, and this is the end of the copper pipe module. Please be sure to look next week for the application part of this module, where I'll give a little project on having to order the pipe that you would need for a project and also the fittings. Once again, thank you. I look forward to seeing you in lab.